Hey, it's Tiffany. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know I'm feeling this pull away from social media and towards real connection. And that's exactly why I started my newsletter. It's a place for us to connect authentically without having to jump through algorithms. I usually share a little bit about what's going on in my life, my family, practical tips for 2 career homes, and just generally things that are inspiring me. I'd love for you to join me so we can create this little online space and we can lean into all of the ands in our lives together. You can sign up at the link in our show notes. Enjoy this episode. I'm a small town kid born with a big city spirit. I choose to play a lot of awesome roles in life: mom, wife, entrepreneur, CEO, board member, investor, and mentor. 17 years ago, I founded a marketing consultancy, and ever since, my husband JR and I have been building our careers and our family on the exact same timeline. Yep. That means 4 kids, 3 businesses, 2 careers, all building towards one life we love. When I discovered I could purposefully embrace all of these ands in my life, it unlocked my world. And I want that for you too. I'm Tiffany Souter, and this is Scared Confident. This week, I talked to Amber Fields. She's the CEO of trueU and has really been on a remarkable journey in her own process of accepting the fact that she really is a CEO. And, you know, we throw around these words imposter syndrome a lot, but I think the real choice we all have is whether or not we're actually going to do the work to believe that we have earned the right, that we deserve the right to sit in the seat of opportunity that we've been given. And that doesn't mean that we have like a deserving attitude, like, oh, of course, I deserve this. But when we are asked to lead, when we are called to give direction and vision to a group of people, when we sit in that seat reluctantly, we don't serve anyone well. And Amber was given a big leadership opportunity before she saw that she was ready. And we really walked through her journey of how she became to believe that she really was the right person for that seat. So if you're in a place in your life where you're just not sure, you're like sitting in a seat saying, I don't think I belong here. Everybody's got to be looking at me and thinking I'm going to fail at any moment in time. First of all, I'm sure that's not true. You've been given this opportunity for a reason. But I think in Amber's journey, we can all learn how to more clearly see ourselves through the lens of our talents and the way our gifts can serve the people that we're leading around us. I want to start with kind of the very brief convo we had. I was like, hey, come on the podcast. I want to learn more. Let's talk about it. You had me join a panel and we were talking about kind of modern workplace stuff and responding to COVID. And we were leaving and I was like, you just feel like you're in the pocket of life. Your spirit, mind, body, dreams, opportunities, everything just came together. Yeah. You can just see that in you. And I was like, I'm so happy for you. It's amazing. You can see it so clearly. And you said, I am there, but I really battled for a long time. Imposter syndrome and not believing if I should or could do some of the things that you're doing now. So let's like unpack that a little bit because I know it's not a unique feeling for people and it can make you feel really lonely. So kind of where did it start for you and kind of bring me to now and then we can talk about that.
Yeah. So I'm going to start way back when I was in college because I went to school to be a television news anchor, except that I was on the air the day of 9/11 and it changed my life forever. You know, I always joke that, not joke, but I'm serious. Like I'm glad it was radio and not television because I cried through and I was 21, you know, so I was really young in my career, but I was driven. I had plans, you know, I was going to be the next Katie Couric until, you know, I get there and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be the bearer of bad news for the rest of my life. But I had an $80,000 degree that said, well, you should probably try. And I just met my husband and he had 2 small kids. So we are a family of 5, but my oldest are my 2 stepkids, 22, 21, and we've been married almost 20 years this year. And so
they were baby. They were little.
They were very little.
Yeah.
Very little. And so
you were how old?
22 when we got married.
Okay.
Yeah. Ready-made family.
Yes. That's a big thing to step into though at that age.
Well, and when you talk about career, I had to make a choice. Was I going to follow my career or was I going to take care of my family? And I had a job offer in North Dakota making $24,000 a year. And was I going to take my husband away from his 2 small children to chase a dream that I wasn't even 100% sure that I wanted to do anymore? So I just said, you know what? I'm going to take a job. I'm going to take care of my family because that's really where my priority is. I'll figure out me later. Dot, dot, dot. And then 10 years of trying to figure it out, right? I went into customer service. I was a team leader in different companies. And then one day someone said, hey, I think you'd be really good at sales. You should try sales. And I was like, no, because I don't want to be a sleazy salesperson. And they were like, just don't be. I was like, okay. So I was selling IT consulting services, which is like the hardest thing on the planet to sell. But I think all of these different jobs that I had 100% led me to where I am today because I have the business acumen. I understand
Mhm.
what it means to serve a client with excellent service. So I sold IT services for about 8 or 9 years. I had worked for some really great companies with great culture, and I'd worked with some with really poor culture. But
Mhm.
somehow along the way, I was always the person from an HR perspective that was like, everything culture, people, talent development, talent learning, you should come to Amber because she's really good at those things. So on top of selling and, doing that, I did those things too.
At the enterprise level or even just for your team or both?
Both,
Okay.
both. I worked for Verizon for several years and they kept trying to get me to go be a trainer, but that meant traveling. What you will see along my path is, and I hear you talk about this all the time, trying to grow a family, raise a family, and have a career. And my husband also has worked and tried to figure out his pathway as well. So, us trying to figure that out together, sometimes he was in the forefront, sometimes I was, which I know you talk about and you get. It was hard. It was really hard. And he was very supportive 100% all the way through. He was actually the one that told me because I was doing a lot of learning and development and training and he said, "When are you going to stop and realize you have everything that you need already within you?"
So when you say it was hard, what was hard? Because there's a lot of versions of hard.
Yeah,
When you look at that 10 years, what was hard?
not doing what I knew that I was supposed to be doing. I felt called to entrepreneurship years ago, but I wasn't ready. I didn't
Mhm.
have the experience that I needed, but I kept feeling that tug. And I'm the type of person I think you are too. No matter what you're called to do or what you're doing in that season of life, you're going to do it in excellence. You're going to do it great, but there always feels like there's a miss somewhere. And so when I was at Verizon, they had a great culture for a really large company, it was a subculture. And I felt like I had the opportunity to be a catalyst in that culture and really
Mhm.
helping with talent retention and talent attraction and so that's kind of where my story starts to pick up.
Mhm.
People are always coming to me about career pathing. Hey, you seem like you're really good in all the jobs that you've ever had. Seems like you find your way. Tell me what I should be doing. It's not up to me to tell you. Where do you want to go? What's
Mhm.
the vision for where you see yourself? If you can't do, teach. So
Mhm.
I was
Mhm.
teaching other people how to do that while I was on my pathway to figuring it out. So what was hard was just not being aligned and feeling that sense of misalignment, but being on the growth journey and understanding that it just wasn't my time yet. What else was hard was several mentors or people that I looked up to in my life told me that I wouldn't be this type of good leader and decided and taking that feedback.
Did you hear that or did they say that?
In some circumstances, it could have been what I heard, but in a couple scenarios, it was the poignant, like, "I just don't think you have what it takes to be a CEO,"
Yep.
or "You haven't led people yet up to this point in your life, so I don't know that you'd be a good fit for this job." When I'm leading people from my seat, leading with
Yeah.
influence, 22 people on my team, right? Getting them to do things that they couldn't get their direct managers to get them to do. I was getting them to do that. So there were a few people in my life that it was like, "Okay, thank you for the feedback. I hear what you're saying. Maybe I'm not ready for that, but there's a part of you, Tiffany, that you want to believe them." Right? You're like, "Well, maybe I'm not." When you talk about imposter syndrome, when this opportunity came to be and it was divine, I couldn't have put this together if I'd tried. And in March of 2021, I just surrendered my career. I'm a woman of faith and I was like, I can't. I'm tired of chasing it. I was chasing title, I was chasing money, and I'm like, at this point, I want to do whatever I'm supposed to be doing,
Mhm.
and whatever you decide that that is, I will do. So I felt some God nudges.
Yeah, sure.
Chris Mills is the COO of ML Talent Strategies. She's also part of Rise and Thrive, which I'm a part of. And I kept getting the nudge to reach out to her. And so I did. I asked her, here's what I'm looking for. But here's the thing, Tiffany, I was very clear. I wanted to lead a team. I was ready to explore this level of entrepreneurship that I kept feeling the tug on. I wanted to
Mhm.
grow something and I wanted to use my gifts and talents.
Mhm.
But I had to do all that work leading up to figure
Mhm.
out those things. And so when I reached out to her, she said, "Your timing is impeccable." And that's where the trueU story begins.
Okay, so I want to backtrack your personal life a little bit
Yeah.
because I think that the life of and part is really relevant because you have 5 kids in your house at very different stages. So
Mhm.
along that path, when did you have your biological kids? You had those in that 10-year stretch, is that
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
You have twins, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And
Mhm.
they're how old?
12.
And they're the youngest.
Mhm.
Okay. What compassion are you able to have for yourself today that you couldn't have for yourself then?
For sure. That it was okay to be a mom first. It was 100% okay to take the path that I took. I got a lot of grief. Man, you've switched jobs a lot. That doesn't look good on a resume. People looked at that and they're like, doesn't look like you're very stable in the jobs. And I said, no, if I wasn't happy or I didn't feel like I could bring in excellence everything I needed to do, then it wasn't the right fit for me.
Mhm.
So I'm looking for that place where I could give it everything that I have and be fully aligned. And it was okay that I just wanted to be a mom, right? I was a stay-at-home mom for a couple years when my twins were young, got out of the workplace so that I could start this discovery process. I
Mhm.
was self-aware enough that I knew I couldn't sit inside the 4 walls of a manufacturing organization and push paperwork. I
Mhm.
just couldn't do it. And so I went home. That also wasn't for me.
But it's an important experiment,
It
I
is.
think.
I'm a way better mom when I'm a contributor to society, and that was part of the issue is I felt bad that I was like, I birthed these children and I should be the mom that wants to be a stay-at-home mom with them, and I don't. I'm a way better mom when I get to go to work and come back and have quality life experiences with them versus the quantity of it, right? And they were gonna grow up. They were 2 and a half. They were going to preschool. They were gonna be out doing their own thing, and so I just had to be okay with going back to work and finding my place in the workplace.
I think this is a very real struggle. I actually think it's somewhat divine. I was so clumsy about trying to figure out what question I'm supposed to ask because I don't know how to beg young women to when I talk about a life of and it doesn't have to look like mine.
Mhm.
And like you said, it's like I had to try it. I
Yeah.
had to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like what is my heart called to do?
Mhm.
And it is this weird thing of like, do I not love my kids enough if I don't want to be with them all the time? Like,
Mhm.
is there something flawed in my connection with them? Like, it's kind of this weird thing.
Mhm.
And I felt that same thing. And I don't know, my mom stayed home. Did your mom stay home with you guys? She worked.
No, my grandmother did though, so I saw it.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
your grandma was with you.
Yeah.
And so it's this thing of like, are my kids going to know me? Like, how is this all going to play out? There's a lot of courage that it took to kind of stand out
Mhm.
in every environment. You probably didn't fit with the stay-at-home moms, you
Mhm.
didn't fit with the working moms, and finding your place is really hard.
It is. I felt like a misfit everywhere. And even when Mike Lance hired me, one of the things that he said to me was, "There's nothing on your resume that says that you are qualified to do this job." And he meant it as a compliment, right? Like
Mhm.
he was like, "And you are 100% the perfect person to do this work, but you can't quantify that on a piece of paper. You just can't qualify experience and passion and purpose and gifts." So it was a conversation, right? He felt my passion for what we were doing. And no, I didn't have a background in HR. Actually, when some of my IT mentors said, "You do realize you belong in HR, right?" I resisted it. I was like, no, because I don't want to be a part of the fun police. And they were like, no, no, no. The people and culture side of it, the talent development piece of that is 100% where you belong. I could have went to a place of like regret where, man, I should have explored that before, but I didn't. And it's okay because now was the right time for me to fall into this place. And everything that I have experienced in the past has helped me be successful thus far. You said it. I feel like I'm in the pocket of everything I'm supposed to be doing, even when it's hard. Tiffany, I was driving over here and I thought, you know that you love your job and you're exactly where you're supposed to be when you love it, even when it's hard. Because we're in a season of growth and we're in a season where you got to make hard decisions. I spent the first year getting this job in imposter syndrome. I told you that last time we were together because it was like, I'm not qualified. I don't even actually know what I'm doing. I have great mentors and it feels like I'm on the right path, but always questioning, am I making the right decision? And this year I just decided I was not going to have that mindset. I am confident enough to know that I have leaders that are pointing me in the right direction. I have mentors and my instincts are good enough to know.
Mhm.
I have enough experience to know whether this is going to work. And if it doesn't, it's okay to fail also.
Mhm. I think that's totally the through line in this is like your own belief begets your outcomes. Like even when you talked about early on, like, you didn't have the experience for entrepreneurship. I mean, my glance saw potential, not
Mhm.
experience,
That's right.
and I do think we need people in our lives to, like, find that in us. Like,
Mhm.
I just believe in you. I had clients along the way who were, like, handing me projects. I was like, I mean, I wanna cry, this looks so hard. I have no idea how to do this. And they're like, "You'll be fine, kiddo.
Yep.
We'll see you in the conference room. You're gonna say something," you know? And it's like, you need people to push you into your potential. Circumstances, crisis, whatever it is, you've gotta have people who push you into that. It's a big piece of it.
When I talked about the other folks before that spoke to my lack of experience, that's why I'm such a huge proponent for mentorship, because you're right. Somebody has to push you into your potential. That's the greatest quote I've ever heard. Someone had to stand in the gap for you and see something in you that you couldn't see in yourself to get you to the place where you were supposed to be. And I am so blessed to have had people that I've met in my life that I focus more on than the negative, that I listen to more often than I do the people who didn't believe, that kept me courageously going forward and exploring whatever this call was. Because I could have just folded,
Totally.
tucked my tail and said, you know what, you're probably right.
Uh-huh.
I'm probably not cut out for this. I couldn't do it.
So you weren't hired into the role you're in right now,
Mm-mm.
right?
No.
So walk us through that a little bit and give listeners, if they're not familiar, what trueU is, just so there's some backdrop to that.
Yeah, we are a membership company that helps organizations hire, attract, retain, and engage their top talent. It's a membership based organization. They come in and we help them build culture and develop their people. And I've been there 18 months. So I came in as the vice president of culture. So the company was being bought by one of the original co-founders, Mike Lance, because it was born out of Defenders, for
Mhm.
those of you that know who Defenders is. And Defenders just had a really great success. Before culture was cool, they were really pouring into their people and growing at a really high rate. And people were asking questions. What are you doing? And, the founders are like, we're investing in our people and we're growing
Mhm.
them and we're helping them to career path intentionally. And so we were in a culture community where we were teaching that and having conversations. What's working for you? What's not working for you? And so we just continued that path and we've added some additional layers to that intentionally. What does it look like to create a community and really invest in your mid-level manager? We have a peer group for them. We have a peer group for people
Mhm.
ops and HR leaders, and then for executives. And so for us, it's really about developing the next generation of leaders. And I also have a background in sales. So I was pretty successful right out of the gate, finding and attracting new companies that were excited about culture. Culture is your cutting edge difference between the competition, your people. And so we grew from 60 members to over 100 in 4 months.
Amazing.
Hmm.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were hired in what into what role
The vice president of culture.
of culture, and what
Mhm.
did that mean? Tell me what that role was intended to do.
To lead.
Okay.
I just wasn't qualified to be, a CEO or a C-suite at that point because I didn't have any experience.
But was that the intention of like, hey, we're going to bring you into
Mhm.
this role,
Mhm.
let you get your feet wet,
Yes.
and then we're going to move you into the CEO role?
Yes. And then I started in August, and in February, I think I'd proven myself enough and that I had the grit and that I was in it for the long haul. So in February, I was made the chief culture officer, which is equivalent to the CEO. So I run the things and I work very closely with the co-owner also. Mike Lance is an incredible leader. He works really closely with me to teach me the things that I don't know. And I'm really grateful for that because he doesn't allow me to fall on my face too fast.
So you guys have like same page meetings or L10s or
Oh yeah.
something? Yeah.
Yep.
What are the themes you most hear from him in molding you as a leader in this role?
Yeah. Be more strategic. We're a small team, so I'm in the day-to-day a lot as we grow our young team and build out new processes and build out new offerings for our members. I'm really in the day-to-day, and he's like, "You've gotta get them to the place where they can handle the day-to-day so that you can be more strategic and have a vision for where the company is going next."
Is there a comfort for you in the day to day?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
It's weird not having tasks or emails.
I wouldn't even know. Yeah,
I'm like, what do you mean? Because there were seasons of elementary where I was not strategic. Because, like, I mean, I wouldn't even know what to do. Sit? Like, what's the task? Yeah. Yes. And it becomes a real
Mm,
habit. I think there's something chemical or something that,
for sure.
like, just the task, like,
It's all we've known.
yes, totally.
It's all we've
Mhm.
known. And the other theme is financial, right? Think every decision we make has a
Mhm.
financial impact on the business. So you need to be more strategic and more financially mindful of
Mhm.
everything that goes in and goes out.
So have you had visibility to a full P&L before this role?
No.
Okay, that's such a great growth opportunity.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Yeah, because you're like, oh, so that means that. Yes. And every quarter he's going over it with me, and you're like, the reality of this is you got to keep the growth going so
Mhm.
that we can continue to do the great things that we're doing.
How have you absorbed the pressure of that? Because it's
Mm.
kinda helpful not to know.
It was pretty stressful. Like at first I was really reactive, right?
Mhm.
Oh, okay, so we've lost there, so we need to do this, so I'm just gonna go fix it. I've been a solutions architect
Mhm.
for most of my career, right? So I'm just gonna go find a solution. He's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We got to be strategic about the way that we do this because we can't just keep band-aiding these situations.
Mhm.
What's the long-term goal here? And how are we going to fix this from a long-term vision? And I'm like,
Mhm.
that requires me to sit back by myself and like think. So that's been a struggle. And it's been great because I'm learning a lot about myself and the process along the way.
Have you figured out how to get your brain to think yet? Do you need context for that question? Because
No,
that's not to say you don't think,
no, no,
but
no.
uh-huh.
You have to clear space because every single day you could fill your calendar up with all the things, right? Everything that I enjoy doing. And it's not that I don't enjoy being strategic. It's to your point, figuring out how to be strategic. So I literally schedule 2 strategic days for myself every week. And it's sitting in front of my computer thinking, thinking about where we are today, thinking about where we're trying to get to, getting a clear vision and then working the process backwards.
I encourage you to, like, really experiment. Maybe sitting in front of your computer gets your brain to work. I have found, for me, being on a computer is too linear. My mind is not linear, and so having a big fat Sharpie marker that's, like, fresh and new and a big 11 by 17 piece of paper, and I draw. And the other thing I've learned for me is try different times a day and different days of the week. Mondays and Fridays are bad for me,
Me too.
and I'm way better before noon.
I have figured that out. My optimal time is 5 a.m. to noon. I can get up at 5 and it's quiet. The kids haven't gotten up yet. I get a cup of coffee and just go. All of my, public speaking, all of my great ideas around putting those presentations together and those conversations come between 5 and 7. And after 12, I'm like, no good. Give me all the menial tasks after 12.
Totally. Give me emails. Yeah, give me emails. The other thing I've learned, is if I export for, like, maybe an hour and a half on my piece of paper or whatever, and then just go take a walk, move my body 20 to 30 minutes, and just let my brain sit on what I just got out for a couple minutes, and then I just voice memo
That's
what
smart.
comes to mind. Like, it's how I get kind of past the obvious in my head,
Hmm.
and my brain starts making connections of what I just did. I have found this, like, idea of, like, take a clarity break, which EOS is big on those words, or, like, yeah, find some strategic time. I really struggled with finding how I got my brain to show up for me
Hmm.
versus just, like, I don't know, sometimes I'm in the shower and things come to me,
Yes.
which that still happens. It's like being an artist. How do you begin to have a process so that you can create art at timeframes for customers
Yes.
versus whenever creativity strikes? And I
Yeah.
think that this is the next barrier for leadership, is, like, how you get yourself to be able to think at a different level.
Yeah. To your point about themes are really prominent in my life. And this is
Mhm.
the third or fourth conversation that I've had around this particular topic. So I'm like, okay, I hear you.
That's so funny.
I literally had a session with one of my mentors who's CEO of a member company of ours, Jason Coldiron. He said, are you being intentional about the days that you're strategic and the time of day? Like, are
Uh-huh.
you flipping back and forth from strategy to tactical? And I'm like, yes. I go to my blind zebra training. They're like, okay, so today we're going to schedule out strategy days and tactical days. I was like, okay, apparently I'm not getting the
Uh-huh.
message because now, to your point, this is the third time I've heard this. So it's a process, right? It's calendar management, it's organization, because that was the other thing. When you are a leader at this level, you have a lot of responsibilities. And if you don't prioritize what those responsibilities are, you're never getting anything done. So it feels like, right? So this has just created so much freedom for me in my calendar, and we're a weekend.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I feel like you've also been on a health journey. Like you
Mhm.
look amazing.
Thank you.
So speaking of like calendar management, I have to take ownership of this is something I want in my life. Somebody
Yeah.
else can't do it for you.
Yeah.
You have the biggest job you've ever had. You've had the most growth you've ever had, all those kinds of things. And yet
Yeah.
you still found a way to make this happen.
Yeah.
Talk through that if you're comfortable.
Ooh. So last year, as I mentioned, I spent most of the year in imposter syndrome and feeling really frustrated and not feeling well. I had finally, quote unquote, arrived in the place where have been searching and trying to get to my entire adult career. And yet I still did not feel like a whole person. There was something that was missing. And when you don't prioritize yourself, what ends up happening is you lose it on the back end.
Mhm.
So July of last year, I was feeling very stressed. There was a lot of moving parts inside of the business. We had some churn, and we were bringing in new people, trying to find the right people that were in alignment. It was just hard. So in July, I got sick. In August, I got a kidney stone, which I've never had in my
I've heard
life.
those are terrible.
It's worse than
That's
childbirth,
what I've
and
heard.
I've
Is it really
birthed
true?
twins.
Yes.
So, like, it was
Really for real.
awful.
Oh, I've heard
Yes, it
it's
was
terrible. Sorry to bring
so
it back,
bad.
but I've heard it's bad.
September, I go on a girls' trip. I'm like, okay, I'm going to decompress. I was with my friend Erica Ballard and Rebecca Borman, and we're out in the mountains in Colorado. And the first day, I stepped down on a rock in the hot springs and break two of my toes.
What?
Random, right? The dumbest things that could possibly happen. And I feel like it was like the universe telling me, will you just get your life together? Because
Uh-huh.
this is how careless you're being with
Mhm.
yourself. And when you don't take care of yourself, none of this other stuff matters. And I had been thinking about better eating, moving your body. Like I'd been thinking,
Mhm.
because you do that because your weight fluctuates and all these things.
Mhm.
And so I just went back to my doctor and I was like, okay, what is actually happening with me? I'm not sleeping. I'm super stressed out. They do the whole test, they check your hormones. And it was really about that. My hormones were
Mhm.
super out of whack from being on birth control for, since you were young. And I needed to regulate that. I had no testosterone and I work out a lot. I'm a
Mm.
huge hot Pilates fan, runner, walk, all the things. But my doctor was like, you could work out all you want, but if you don't have any testosterone, you don't build any muscle.
Wow.
So we got that in alignment. My A1C was super high. So we got that in check. And I started eating better, moving my
Mhm.
body, and controlling stress. Stress
Mhm.
lives in that mid level section of your body.
Mhm.
And that's where I felt the worst. Tiffany, the thing that I could say, and I've said this to other people, like needed myself to align internally to the way I looked externally. I felt
Mhm.
really good on the inside, but when I saw
Mhm.
myself, that it was not the same person that I saw.
Mhm.
I caught a glimpse of myself in a video because what we do is very audio,
Mhm.
visual, all of those things, and I lost it.
Mm. Like,
And
actually?
like lost it.
Oh, like, start crying?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
It was May of last year
It's,
when
like,
all of this
super visceral.
very. And I thought that is not the way that I see
Mhm.
myself. I cannot actually look that way. So, whatever the motivation, I was like, it's time. And I'm tired of not taking care of myself. And I stopped feeling bad for putting myself as a priority over my family because that's not what I'm doing. To your point, there is an and. And the and is if mom doesn't take care of herself, I'm not even going to be here to be a part of your life. And then none of this matters. So when I am going to go work out, when I am, taking more time at the grocery store because I got to be thoughtful about the things that I eat, like this is all a part of it. When I need to go away on a girls' trip to decompress my brain and get rid of some of the stress, like you just got to be okay with it and not to be made to feel guilty about it because mom guilt is real. I lived with it for, 20 years. And so in the last year, I feel fully aligned physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally.
Have you talked to your kids about it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What's it sound like when you talk to them?
Just really encouraging them to get ahead of it now. Don't
Mhm.
wait. I'm almost 42. So I waited, till my 40s when I probably could have saved myself, no regrets, but I could have
Mhm.
saved myself a lot of stress and a lot of worry if I just been aware of what was happening inside of my body
Mhm.
that was impacting my reaction, my behaviors, the mental stress, the fog,
Mhm.
and they're inspired by it, right? Like
Mhm.
there is no guilt or shame about body
No.
image in our house,
Yeah.
but there is a real conversation about the things that we eat and how it impacts our body and the way you move your body and just not prioritizing yourself. And I have 3 daughters,
Mhm.
and 2 sons. The boys are like, "Yeah, okay, mom." But the girls are like, "Okay, you're right. I
Mhm.
probably should not, you know, pack my calendar with all the things so that I can find time to do the things that are important to me, and taking care of me is one of those.
Mm-hmm. I think as moms in particular, we have so much influence over like the language of the household as far as like what food is in the fridge, what's on the counter to eat, whether or not meals are structured or it's just like you snack the whole day, or if we shut the TV off and have a fun idea to go outside. Like it takes more effort and creativity to do that. But I feel the temperature of our house change so dramatically based on how connected I am to my own like
100%.
health cues and intentionally about rest. It's like, guys, we're shutting the house down. Everybody's going to bed at 9:40. Like, you're not going to die. I know you're a teenager, but it's good for you, you know? And
so true.
they do go to bed because there's nothing fun going on, you know?
And incorporating them into it. So going, like, to your point, something fun activity, let's go on a walk together. You know, we have these 2 sweet golden doodle puppies, and like, let's go walk them and have fun, because that's where the real conversation and connection happen. And that's really what this is about, right? Building authentic connection with our families. My daughter is in track. Let's go run together. I'm not the greatest runner, but I enjoy it. So let's go do this together. And it's fun. She's very competitive, so she loves to beat me.
That's awesome. So as you look forward into the next like 3 years, what are some dreams or wishes that you want to bring into reality for yourself?
We love to travel as a family. We went to Disney for Christmas, and we took my 5 kids and the 3 oldest significant others, because they're 22, 21, and 18. My 18-year-old's at Purdue. Her and her boyfriend are. And we just want to travel together as a family. We want to make it a point that every year the 10 of us get to go do something together. We unplug, be together. I was actually really surprised. We're at Disney World. I figured the adult children would go on their own and do their own thing. And I loved it because they wanted to stay with us, hanging out with the 2 younger ones. You know, I remember there's 7 years difference between my brother and I, and he was annoying, right? So I love that they don't really view it that way. They take care of them and they want to hang out. So traveling with my family is one. I want to grow this business and make a bigger impact. You know, we're doing really good work to help leaders become the best versions of themselves, to create other great leaders. And primarily our footprint is in Indiana today. Where else could this go? Can this be a regional and national thing? You know, where what COVID taught us is that virtual does work. It's different than the in-person. And we get lots of great feedback about our in-person cultural learning sessions are so amazing. And there is an opportunity, you know, we have a great virtual platform too. So growing this regionally and then nationally is definitely on my 3-year bucket list. And then just enhancing connection and building new relationships in life, period. I wouldn't be anywhere that I am today without the people in my life. And I feel very supported. We had a loss in our family recently, and I feel very blessed to just feel covered and connected by people in the community, and more than just family and friends. You know, my entire staff came to the funeral, wrapped their arms around me, and everybody in the funeral home's looking and they're like, what is that? And I walked away feeling like, this pinched me because this doesn't really feel real. I want people to have that level of connection inside of their communities and inside of their world. So helping people develop those relationships, that's what I want to be doing.
You know that they showed up for you that way because you show up like that for them.
We'll start crying if we start talking like that.
I'm
But
serious
yes,
though.
you're right.
You do that for people. I don't know you that well,
Yes.
but I see that in you, that you show up well for people.
Yeah.
And so know that that's a reflection of who you are and how you show up for people.
Thank you. It meant a lot. And it's who I am. You know, I want to be that person for them. And it feels good to know that it is reciprocated. And it's not a tit for tat, like you give me and I give you. It's that's how a lot of my life has felt like growing up, you know, competition and, you know, you do for me and I'll do for you, especially in the sales world, right? And it's just not that way. You just do for people what's needed and wanted. Show up in the world and be who they need you to be. And the universe and faith or whatever will show up and give you what you need.
Do you feel like it's been a journey for you to bring your whole self to work? I feel like you do that now, my observation.
Yeah.
Has that been a journey for you?
Oh, yeah. Because in some positions, my vulnerability is threatening to people. People don't like vulnerability. And I am 100% a vulnerable invitation for you to be whoever you are in the moment. In our L10 meetings, people have real life stuff going on. And personal is priority. We're doing really good work. We're not on the operating table of saving lives, like, I need you to be okay as an individual before we can move forward with business, and just being that invitation for vulnerability. That hasn't been something that has been welcomed in previous places that I've worked before.
It's cool. So, closing question, unless there's anything you have for me. If you were to give advice to your 24-year-old self, what would it be?
Man, 24. What was I doing at 24? I had 2 stepkids. I had a kid of my own. She was a baby. Be courageous in everything that you do. There is a plan for you, and there are no mistakes. Regardless of what path you take, there's an opportunity to learn from everything that you do. So you just have to step into it courageously and be okay with whatever path forward it is. I questioned a lot of decisions that I made from 24 to 42. And to be confident and take ownership of the places where I've been, they were all supposed to happen. I learned from every single thing that I did, and it was okay at times to not be okay with it.
I love it. Thanks.
You're welcome. This was so fun.
That was great. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Scared Confident. Until next time, keep telling fear, you will not decide what happens in my life. I will. If you want to get the inside scoop, sign up for my newsletter. We decided to make content for you instead of social media algorithms. The link is waiting for you in show notes, or you can head over to tiffanysouter.com. Thanks for listening.